Title: The Autumn Wound. Year: 145 million. Era: Cradle of Titans. Author: Jeremy Levan, and Rise of the Zodiac Series 2025. Chapter 1. In the red vein forests of Mivenmore, peace was maintained through forgetting. The scroll of sins was sealed in the Hall of Quiet, and every crime too painful to confront was written into oblivion. Justice was tidy, quiet, and chronically incomplete. The scarred envoy knew better. He wore the history of those sins across his skin, literal wounds from acts committed before his birth. Family punishment passed down until it disappeared. Except it never did. The keeper of eternal autumn, steward of the trees that never changed, offered him comfort once. He refused. "What wounds you," he said to her, "may be what awakens you." And then he opened the scroll. Chapter 2. The forest screamed, not from pain, but memory. Leaves fell for the first time in centuries, revealing carvings on bark long thought smooth. Names of the disappeared, echoes of rebellion, confessions, scratched in secret. Mivenmore's elders panicked. The keeper followed the scarred envoy into the hollow of repeating days. A time, moved veil used to erase undesirable truths. He stood at its edge. She tried to pull him back, but he walked forward again and again. Every loop peeled back more illusion. He emerged with fire in his veins and a single phrase on his lips. "Tell them." She did, even when it cracked her voice, even when the elders turned cold. Chapter 3. The hollow shattered. Time began moving again. People came forward quietly at first with stories that didn't match the scrolls. Farmers remembered soldiers. Children remembered mothers who had vanished without cause. And from the pain rose purpose. The scroll of sins was rewritten not to forget, but to remember. The scarred envoy never ruled. He never asked for power, but his wounds became lessons. The keeper of eternal autumn stepped down from her post. The forest changed colors. Every year now, each season, a new chapter, each leaf a lesson made visible. At the forest heart stands a tree with golden bark and crimson veins round its base, in living script. What wounds you, may be. What awakens you, remember. Rise. Repeat nothing. Title: The Light of the Unseen. Year: 147,307,006. 192.3. Era: Cradle of Titans. Author: Jeremy Levan, and Rise of the Zodiac Series 2025. Chapter 1. In the high citadel of Calvaran, strength was measured by silence. Those who cried out were seen as weak. Those who bled without protest were called noble. And passion was currency spent only in secret. The dreamwalker remembered otherwise. She had once lived among the lowland weavers, where every wound was sung into healing, and no child cried alone. But the citadel had taken her, recruited her visions to advise generals, her silence to flatter kings. She stayed silent until she met the blind poet. He wrote verses in charcoal and chalk, scattering them across corridors and balconies. One morning she found a phrase outside the war council chamber: "The love without grasping is to touch the eternal." That night she dreamed of weeping soldiers and woke with resolve. Chapter 2. The blind poet. It was arrested for treason. His verses questioned the glory of war, elevated the soft over the strong. But when the dreamwalker walked into his cell, she did not free him. She listened. He told her of the border raids, the children abandoned because they could not wield swords, the mothers ignored because they could not speak tactically. He told her that the citadel would fall not from force, but from forgetting. The next morning she summoned the war council and refused to dream for them. Instead, she told stories, not of glory, but of those too small to notice. They laughed, and listened, then faltered. Chapter 3. The dreamwalker and blind poet were exiled, but their stories remain, and they spread. The people began protecting the weak, not with pity, but reverence. Shields were crafted not just for warriors, but for farmers. Poems were carved into armor. Soldiers marched with lullabies stitched into their cloaks. Calvaran's lost change, not by revolution, but remembrance. And at the edge of the valley where the dreamwalker and poet built their quiet home, travelers still gathered to hear the poems carried by wind. On a weathered stone reads: "The love without grasping is to touch the eternal. Defend not with might, but with memory and care." Title: The Thread Beneath the Steel. Year: 144,615,384.6. Era: Cradle of Titans. Author: Jeremy Levan, and Rise of the Zodiac Series 2025. Chapter 1. The orbit hive known as Arcanix did not believe in legacy. It was a place of utility, efficiency, and isolation. Each sector functioned as a closed-circuit: engineers, builders, thinkers. No fraternization, no deviation. Individual purpose was absolute. But then came the bone singer. Nobody knew her origin. She hummed while she welded, a vibration that shook more than steel. And in the night, someone rewired the memory boards to play music, not alerts, but lullabies. The saboteur of fate was dispatched. He didn't hesitate. He had silenced poets before, rewoven rebellion into system updates. But when he found her, she didn't plead. She sang, and something cracked. What you give up, she said, becomes the scaffolding for your becoming. Chapter 2. The saboteur hesitated. She showed him the archive illegally restored. Faces of those erased from Arcanex's systems. Histories turned to dust because they slowed progress. He remembered one, his brother. He had been an artist. The saboteur deactivated his interface and walked with the bone singer through sectors where the music still lived in ductwork, in the tremble of generators, in the pause before command prompts executed. He planted a virus, not one of destruction, but remembrance. The virus-linked systems. Doors responded to laughter. Drones pulsed in rhythm with stories. Consoles played back messages from decades past. The hive awakened. Chapter 3. Arcanex adapted. Not all welcomed the change, but most found themselves lingering, listening, asking questions once coded as obsolete. The saboteur vanished from records, but not from memory, and in the junction core, where once only cooling fans whispered, a new program plays daily. The bone singers hum, layered with names of the forgotten, forming chords of remembrance. Above the terminal, engraved by a hand who chose to feel. What you give up becomes the scaffolding for your becoming. Unmake, unplug, unfold, together. Title: The Bloom Beyond Waiting. Year: 144,423,076.9. Era: Cradle of Titans. Author: Jeremy Levan and Rise of the Zodiac Series 2025. Chapter 1. The city of Viro kept time by its roses. Each bloom cycle marked the turning of seasons, the ascent of council members, the births and unions of its people. Patience was more than a virtue, it was currency. One bloomed too early and withered unseen. The thorn gilded was a gardener of silence, known for pruning vines that dared to butt ahead of schedule. Her hands were marked with scars, each a lesson in restraint. Then came the tear catcher. Traveler who cried not from sorrow, but from beauty, tears caught in crystal phials, which shimmered with distant memories. He spoke little, but where he walked soil softened. The thorn-gilded warned him, gently, "We do not bloom without permission here." He smiled, offering her a phial. "To lose yourself," he whispered, "may be the soul's way of clearing the altar." Chapter 2. She resisted at first, dismissed his tears as sentiment, his phials as distractions, but something lingered in the soil after he left. Her roses took longer to bloom. Their color deepened. Their fragrance clung to the wind like longing. She followed him one morning into the quiet groves beyond the city walls. There, she found the clearing thick with wild roses. No symmetry, no schedule, only beauty. He was kneeling there, placing a crystal phial at the base of a vine. "This one bloomed when its sibling died," he said, "and so I weep and wait." The thorn-gilded did not reply, but she knelt beside him and wept. Chapter 3. She returned to Viral changed. She let a rose bloom early. She let another fall late. She allowed grief in the garden and allowed joy to shape the rhythm. Her council seat was revoked. She did not mind. The tear-catcher stayed. They tended the quiet grove together. Now, in the heart of Viral, roses bloom unevenly, wild, unmeasured, alive. And in the oldest grove, a plaque sits nestled in moss. To lose yourself may be the soul's way of clearing the altar. Be still, let the bloom come when it must. Title: The Thorn of Brightest Dusk. Year: 144,230,769.2. Era: Cradle of Titans. Author: Jeremy Levan and Rise of the Zodiac Series 2025. Chapter 1. On the colony world of Illyrith Prime, happiness was quantified. Emotional metrics were embedded in the bloodstream, regulated by the state of serotonics. Daily pleasures were mandatory. Sorrow was taxed. The dusk-bound twin knew the system well. He had helped write it. Once a visionary programmer, now a shadow, he wandered beyond the walls of the capital bloom where emotion remained unsanctioned and unpredictable. There, he met the thorn-gilded. She was beautiful in the way storms are beautiful, unapologetic, necessary. She had fled the city when her laughter registered non-compliant. Now she grew memories in the soil wild, unmeasured. "You chased joy so far," she said, "that you forgot to ask what it trampled." He laughed, and it cost him a day's rations. Chapter 2. They returned together to the capital bloom, not in protest, but with seeds. They planted them in cracks between mirrors beneath marble stairwells, flowers that fed on illusion, that bloomed only under genuine conflict. The city's happiness scores began to stutter. Officials declared an anomaly. They dispatched auditors. But one by one, the auditors wept. The flowers brought memories unfiltered, unresolved. The dusk-bound twin was apprehended, his sentence for calibration. But even as his metrics were scrubbed, a line remained etched into his neural core. Beauty often waits at the end of the road you almost didn't take. Chapter 3. A thorn gilded remained. She wore no rebellion, only thorns. In time, people began to visit her garden, quietly, shamefully. They did not always smile when they left, but they stood straighter. The state of serotonix weakened, not by war, but by story. Now, in the hidden bloom at the city's edge, a bench rests beneath a tree that sings only at dusk, carved into its bark, glowing faintly with bioluminescent grief. Beauty often waits. At the end of the road, you almost didn't take yet the stars. Remember what silence dare not speak. Title: The Rift That Gave Us Wings. Year: 144,038,461.5. Era: Cradle of Titans. Author: Jeremy Levan. Rise of the Zodiac Series 2025. Chapter 1. In the orbital habitat of Ithkel, history was archived in light. Every memory, law, and design was encoded into shimmering filaments that wove through the very walls of the station. Nothing was forgotten, nothing was questioned. Change was considered corruption. The shield without allegiance was a guardian of the threads, a soldier programmed to protect the past from unauthorized alteration. He was efficient, detached, until he met the dream of the dead star. She was born of a failed colony beyond the Black Edge, a scientist, a dreamer, a heretic. She carried no date, to only stories, fractals of potential futures, and she had come to unravel the threads. The unknown, she told him, is not your enemy, only the ghost of the comfort you refused to leave. Chapter 2. He tried to arrest her. She offered him a story instead. The world that birthed a forest of breathing mirrors. The city where truth grew like coral shifting, pulsing. A people who remembered by letting go. His systems flagged her speech as malware. But he listened, and something frayed. When she touched the threads, they didn't snap. They sang. Together, they rewove a single corridor light pulsing not with history, but possibility. He was decommissioned that night, but not erased. He chose to stay. Chapter 3. Ithkel is no longer a monument. It is a vessel. New corridors bloom with evolving code. The threads now adapt, learn, respond. Memory is no longer static, it's alive. The dream of the dead star leads no one, but she is followed, and the shield walks beside her, not guarding the past, but protecting the secret act of transformation. In the central node, where the old archive once stood, a new inscription spins in orbit, visible only during silence cycles. The unknown is not your enemy, only the ghost of the comfort you refuse to leave. Step forward, burn soft, and build. Title: The Roots of the Buried Flame. Era: Cradle of Titans. Author: Jeremy Levan. Rise of the Zodiac Series 2025. Chapter 1. The sanctum of Valeri stood tall above the black mire. Temple forged of black glass and silence, it commanded reverence through ritual and memory suppression. Each acolyte wore a seal across their lips, a token of obedience, a vow of unquestioned service. The burned pilgrim returned with no seal, once a priest, now a heretic. His face bore the scars of punishment, his robes hung in tatters. He carried no weapon, only a question. What if the word was wrong? The high curate ordered silence, but the ground beneath the sanctum shifted. In the wolf below, truth had begun to grow teeth, and in the dream speech shared that night by every acolyte. When you bury truth, it grows teeth in your sleep. Chapter 2. The cloaked reminder was assigned to erase him. She was swift, precise. She had silenced 30. 3 dissenters with no record of failure. But when she found him tending the archive fire at the secret hearth that burned the forbidden scrolls, she paused. He was humming, a tune she had never been taught, but somehow knew. You don't have to unseal your lips, he said. Only your memory. She hesitated, then removed her seal, and wept. The curate declared her lost. She called herself found. Chapter 3. The sanctum fell without battle. The black mire reclaimed its marble bones. In its place rose the whispering ground, a circle where no one spoke over another, where questions were carved into stone and answered only when the wind shifted. The burned pilgrim vanished again, but the cloaked reminder remained, watching over the fire. Now at the center of the circle, a flame burns from the roots of the old temple. On its hearthstone, etched in salt and ash, when you bury truth, it grows. Eat in your sleep. Uncover, then seal. Wake. Title: The Discipline of Ashes. Year: 143,653,146.2. Era: Cradle of Titans. Author: Jeremy Levan. Rise of the Zodiac Series 2025. Chapter 1. In the fortified enclave of Thorn Hollow, discipline was survival. A dome of glass and reinforced law held back the wasteland whence each citizen followed the schedule etched into their walls, synchronized with the dome's light. Spontaneity was outlawed. Motion taxed. They believed chaos was the first sign of collapse. The mirror without mercy ensured this order. Every week, citizens stood before it and were judged not for sins committed, but for feelings hidden. It stripped away excuses, exposing only what you lacked. Then came the walking vow. She had no past, no record, only a scar across her palm and a quiet smile. She stood before the mirror and did not flinch. Chapter 2. What do you seek? The mirror asked. To bless my ruins, she replied. She was condemned for ambiguity, assigned to the ruined district, a forgotten quarter destroyed in storm for rules. That there she thrived. She cleaned rubble with bare hands, repaired fallen beams, fed dust-covered children with sprouting seeds no one remembered planting. Word spread. People began asking questions. Would structure be strength with compassion? Would success be grown from imperfection? Would ruins be sacred? The mirror without mercy began to stutter. Its reflections grew slower, its judgments softer. One day it cracked. Chapter 3. Born. Although it did not fall, it adapted. Schedules remained, but with windows for silence, reflection, and kindness. Laws evolved. Discipline stayed, not as punishment, but a self-honoring practice. The walking vow became the city's quiet core. She did not lead, but tended. Her vow was never spoken, only lived. Now, beside the old mirror's broken frame, the garden blooms. No signs mark it, only a smooth stone etched in simple lines. To rebuild, you must bless your ruins. Discipline is devotion to what truly matters. Title: The Bridge Beneath the Feud. Year: 143,461,538.5. Era: Cradle of Titans. Author: Jeremy Levan. Rise of the Zodiac, Series 2025. Chapter 1. The city of Kareth was split not by walls, but by history. North and south, once kin, had become adversaries after the twin verdicts, a judicial schism that left two justice systems, two currencies, two truths. No one crossed the Red Verge Bridge anymore. Not officially, not peacefully, until the star-bound pilgrim returned. She had walked the stars, they said, left Kareth when the verdicts passed. Now she came not with law, but a question. What if truth needs more than one mouth to speak? She camped in the center of the bridge, building nothing, saying little. Then came the Echo sister, a fugitive from the north, hunted by the south. She did not run when she saw the pilgrim. She sat beside her. Chapter 2. Each day, a few more joined. A merchant from the north whose debts were denied in the south. A baker who sold to both sides, in secret. A child who asked why the flags were different. The pilgrim listened. The sister told stories of justice flawed, of hope hidden in echo chambers. When a crime occurred, a still reliquary meant for reconciliation. The blame flew like arrows. But the pilgrim and the sister sought not guilt, but understanding. They found the thief, a mourner. She had lost family to both sides, and feared unity would erase their pain. The sister held her hand. Her grief matters, but so does the future we give it. Chapter 3. A new council formed, born not in chambers, but over shared fire on the Red Verge Bridge. Laws were questioned, edges softened, the flags remained, but they no longer flew in opposition. And where once no one dared linger, now there stood a monument of light and resonance, a beacon of story and silence. At its base, in script carved by two hands, what you fear to face often guards the treasure. You were born, defined. Step forward, listen twice, then build together. Title: The Transparent Veil. Year: 143,269,230.8. Era: Cradle of Titans. Author: Jeremy Levan. Rise of the Zodiac, Series 2025. Chapter 1. The city of Briska was wrapped in veils. Every wall was mirrored, every citizen masked. Identity was considered a liability, and secrets were the only currency left unregulated. To speak plainly was a crime. The wind patois unmasked. They arrived during the hollow eclipse, when shadows danced like prophecy and the moon refused reflection. Their presence unnerved the city not for violence, but visibility. They simply stood in the square and breathed. Then came the puzzle-hearted one, collector of forgotten names and mender of soul fractures. She joined the wind, touched with nothing more than a mirror cracked out in the middle. They said nothing, but the wind carried whispers. True freedom comes not from flight, it said, but from surrender. Chapter 2. The first to follow them was a child who sang the real name, then an elder who etched their regrets into public stone, then a guard who confessed to seeing nothing through mirrored helmets. The city began to fracture not from rebellion, but revelation. Shadows revealed secrets. People wept in alleyways where they used to conspire. They forgave each other in gardens where silence once grew thorn and twisted. But not all welcome the change. The cloak keepers, those who maintain the mirrored towers, declare the wind touched a threat to stability. They shattered every reflecting surface in the plaza. And that's when Briska saw itself truly, for the first time. Chapter 3. The puzzle-hearted one stood atop the ruins of the Grand Cloak Hall, and raised the cracked mirror. It reflected not faces, but stories layered, luminous, raw. The wind, touched, whispered a final phrase into the gathering wind. Transparency is not weakness. It is the gift of being known. The mirror towers were never rebuilt. Instead, open-air gathering halls rose. Riska became a place of unveiled names, shared grief, and trust woven not in silence, but song. At the city gates, a veil hangs not to obscure, but to invite. Stitched into it with wind-threaded silver, true freedom comes not from flight, but from surrender. Let them see, let them stay, let them know you. Tidal, the Tamer and the Storm. Year 143,076,923.1. Era, Cradle of Titans. Author, Jeremy Levan. Rise of the Zodiac Series 2025. Chapter 1. The jungle city of Relkora whispered of betrayal. Once, a spirit of the wild had protected it, a guardian unseen, half legend, half law. Hunters left offerings. Elders spoke of her voice in the monsoons. But then came the collapse, and with it the beast tamer. He brought leashes of flame, words sharp as spears. He claimed the wild had turned feral, that the spirit had abandoned them. Relkora welcomed him at first, but when the vines withered where he walked, when the birds stopped singing, people began to remember. The spirit had not left. She had gone quiet. True strength is silent. It waits out the storm. Chapter 2. The spirit returned during the quiet rain, not in form, but in dreams. Children whispered her name. Crops bloomed in defiance of drought. The jungle pulsed beneath the city's stone bones. The beast tamer called it sabotage. He doubled his patrols, captured a child accused of planting wild seeds. The jungle trembled. That night the spirit spoke not to the people, but to the tamer himself. She showed him his past, a promise broken in another village, a brother silenced by fear. He wept, not in repentance, but in rage. He set the forest ablaze. Chapter 3. The fire died by morning, not quenched by rain, but by vines. The spirit took no vengeance, but neither did she protect him. The tamer vanished, some say, into the jungle, others say, into the storm within himself. Relkora rebuilt, but never forgot. Now on the edge of the city, a grove stands untouched. In its center, a stone with two names, one carved, one grown from moss. Beneath them, a phrase whispered only by wind. True strength is silent. It waits out the storm. Forgive, but do not. And see. Title, The Moment Between Stars. Year 142,884,615.4. Era, Cradle of Titans. Author, Jeremy Levan. And Rise of the Zodiac Series 2025. Chapter 1. The city of Velorth was obsessed with prophecy. Every child was born beneath a dome etched with constellations. Their future paths were read from the stars, and each citizen was bound to fulfill the life foreseen. The starless flame burned brightest among them, a child marked by the rare absence of stars. A blank dome, a destiny unknown, she was treated as dangerous, a cosmic error, signed to the archives of delay, where all forbidden knowledge and discarded fates were stored. There she met the keeper of forbidden names, an old man with ink-stained hands who whispered, "Those chasing destiny often miss the miracle of now." She didn't understand until the stars fell. Chapter 2. Not all of them, just one. A single star collapsed from the dome above, shattering prophecy like glass. Chaos reigned. Children demanded new fates. Elders argued over what destiny meant. Star priests debated until their ropes frayed. But the starless flame walked calmly. She never had a prophecy, only freedom. The keeper handed her a book of unchosen names. "Pick one," he said, "or write your own." She laughed, then wrote 3, and stepped outside. She wasn't searching for destiny. She was living. Chapter 3. She began gathering the misfits, those whose fates no longer fit, or who dared ask for more. They formed the constellation of now, a loose order that charted joy in small things. A shared laugh, a meal under falling sky. A story not ending in heroism, but in growth. The city changed. Prophecies still existed, but they were no longer chains. Now, in the archives of delay, a mural stretches across the highest wall, a flame with no source, lighting faces turned upward. Beneath it, painted in bold strokes, those chasing destiny often miss. A miracle of now. Look down, look around, start here. Title, Frost Between Dreams. Year 142,692,307.7. Era, Cradle of Titans. Author, Jeremy Levan. And Rise of the Zodiac Series 2025. Chapter 1. The northern reach glittered with frozen ambition. In the city of Lysena, every child was taught the law of rise, climb or be buried beneath those who do. Towers of ice scrape the sky, built on hierarchies more fragile than snowflakes. The keeper of cosmic law watched from the archives, her heart split between logic and legend. Then came the ice whisperer. No one knew their origin. They carved no trail, cast no shadow, but where they stepped, the frost sang not of conquest, but of cost. One night, the keeper found a scroll on her desk that had not been there before, inked in frostbite script. Sometimes the challenge is a rapping on the wisdom. Chapter 2. Lycina's leaders invited the whisperer to their great hall. They demanded allegiance, offered position, promised silence if necessary. The whisperer said nothing. Instead, they opened a pouch of snow and scattered it on the hall floor. Each flake revealed a memory ambition that ignored harm, triumph that left scorched hearts. The keeper watched as even the frost judged them. She remembered her oath to balance not power, but purpose. So she stood and spoke. Ambition without reflection is the root of our unraveling. She was stripped of title that night, but the whisperer nodded once and vanished. Chapter 3. The towers fell not in flames, but in thaw. One by one, the frozen hierarchies crumbled as citizens began asking, at what cost? Lysina changed, not quickly, but truly. The keeper became a teacher. The whisperer was never seen again, though some claim the stars glimmered differently near the archives. At the city's edge, where ambition once buried the fallen, a monument of ice now stands. It melts each summer and is rebuilt by hand each winter, etched into its core. Sometimes the challenge is the rapping on the wisdom. Unfold it and share the warmth beneath.